You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
Okay, welcome back to Ask the Master Auto Technician. My name is James Morris. Anna Marie Morris is answering the phone calls. It's early Thursday morning, so give us a call at 850-763-0555. I got Mark Sarlo, automotive engineer. And Mark, we were going to talk about the Volkswagen debacle, Volkswagen Gate. That's what I'm going to call it, VW Gate. But we're going to get that in a minute. But I had someone on the show Tuesday morning that called and said that their Honda Odyssey 2014 has 30,000 miles on it. They had their first oil change at 15,000 miles. The wife took it in at 30,000 miles to get the second oil change. They looked at it and said, no, you don't need an oil change. Your gauge on your dash says you have 50% life left in your oil change. Come back and see us in 6 months. And the customer's like going, this can't be true. And I told him it isn't true. It's a marketing ploy that the biggest, in my opinion, they're making sure that he gets to buy a new engine at 100,000 miles. Am I saying something that's not true, or am I?
Yeah, that was not the intent. Here's the background. Once again, we engineers were tasked. So whether it be the Honda engineers, the GM engineers, the Ford, whatever, management tasked us with and says, all right, I need to know what the proper oil change interval is for this engine, because we discussed this before on the shows, is that each engine has what we call an appetite. Some engines, unfortunately, consume, and I'll just make up a number, we'll say a quart of oil every 10,000 miles, and some consume a quart every 600 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could see that if you went for an extended drain on one of the engines that eats oil at the rate of 1 quart per 600, what you would have is, by the time you got to 15,000, you would have zero oil in the engine and a seized-up engine.
That's true.
And that is not the OE's intent, because remember, if this happens during warranty period, they get to buy an engine for you if they're the ones telling you to go 30,000 miles or some ridiculous number on one oil change.
Right, it's 15,000.
Okay.
They're talking about 15,000 she had on it, and they're talking about, we'll see you in 6 months. And she said, well, 6 months, I'll have over 21,000 miles on this oil. And I'm going, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and what you're meaning to say for our listening audience is the vehicle now has 30,000 on it.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the oil at 15.
Mm-hmm.
They now have 15 on the next oil change, and the company is telling them, the dealership's telling them to go another 6, so they'll have 21,000 miles on this oil change.
And I'm just kind of going, because what I have been taught, and in school, and by talking to you and other people, and blogs on the internet, and all these things, that after about 4,000 to 5,000 miles, your oil filter is not filtering very well. In most cases, it's already in bypass mode, and it's just taking up space and occupying a place to filter, but not filtering. And maybe they've changed it. Maybe this machine or this computer inside there is able to recognize if it's filtering or not. Maybe it's got a spectrograph in it. I don't know.
Yeah. No. What ended up happening? And again, let's go back to the root where we were tasked as engineers. Give us a number. So we did, and whatever that number was, and it might have been 7,500 miles of normal driving. And once again, for our listening audience, normal driving, out of 10,000 people, we might know 1 or 2 people that are labeled normal drivers, but the rest of us are severe drivers. And the way it works is if you meet any of the 5 criteria, once again, any extended idling, a short trip where the engine doesn't warm up, so that would typically be under 4 or 5 miles. If you ever do that, if you ever get in stop-and-go driving, if you are ever driving up or down like mountains or any sort of hills, and then if you live in temperature extremes, the temperature extreme is any time that it exceeds 100 and any time that it goes below 32, at that particular point you are a severe driver. That's what I mean by nationwide there might be, out of 10,000 people, 1 or 2 people that are normal drivers. Well, the oil change interval that was originally set up, we'll just say the number is 7,500, that was classified for normal drivers.
Correct.
Okay. Then the government got involved and offered to the manufacturers, said, hey, we really don't want you to be generating waste, used oil. So if you'll change that number, and based on how you change that number, we'll give you what we call EPA green credit that you can use to offset, gee, I didn't meet the corporate average fuel economy, so rather than fine me every engine that we build, and and that fine could be $80, that fine could be $800 for every engine that we build, then what I want you to do is I'll trade you the green credits so that you don't impose a fine on me. And based on the number, and just like you said, the oil change number, based on that number, that's how many green credits they got. So they may have come up with a number of 7,500, and I don't know that as a fact.
Right.
And the government said, well, gee, if you'll double that, then we'll give you this many green credits. So management then comes to the engineers and said, yeah, okay, guys and gals, thank you for generating these numbers. We don't want you to feel bad, but we have an opportunity to get some EPA green credits. What will happen if we take the 7,500 and go to 8,000? And, a lot of us engineers said, well, this will happen. And they said, well, what if we double it? And we said, well, you're going to be replacing engines. And they said, well, how many do you think we'll replace? So it became a game of numbers. If they can get through the 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty without having to replace too many engines, it's worth the EPA green credits. So it didn't have anything to do with, gee, I think we'll sell engines. It had to do with,
green
gee,
credit.
let's play the government's game.
So now I told the gentleman, this is my opinion. I said, sir, if it was me, I would change my oil every 6 months, every 5,000 miles, regardless of what they say. Then once a year, go visit them if that's what they're going to change your oil and filter, and let them do it the second oil change of the year. But going, 14, 15, 20,000 miles between oil changes, that's an open invitation to a catastrophe, in my opinion. I mean,
well, it is, and you mentioned oil filters, so let's go back. Just like when you go to any of the stores, you've got your different levels of oil filters, and so no doubt the least expensive commercial put-on oil filters, just the least expensive of them, do just what you said. They don't last much over 4,000 miles.
Right.
But the filter manufacturers had to respond to these extended drains, so they've changed the media, they've changed the valving, they've changed the materials inside of the oil filter to last longer. But even then, even if they do, the oils themselves are only so good.
Right, and I don't think these cars, I was talking to them, they're not using Mobil 1, they're using the Honda blended oil is what they're using, if I'm not mistaken.
Kind of a synthetic blend.
It's
right.
a synthetic blend. They're not using, molecule by molecule made in a test tube. They're, and you and I know there's only 2 or 3 oils like that, and the rest of them out there, Pennzoil, Quaker State, Valvoline, all those, they're synthetic. They say full synthetic, but you and I know that oil can't be sold overseas as full synthetic because really it's not. It's synthesized.
It's not according to yours and my definition,
right.
But according to the Supreme Court's definition, it is.
Well, the Supremes have they see things differently than you and I, but when it comes like I said earlier, the laws of physics, and when it comes to auto repair and auto maintenance, there's certain rules you can't push or you can't even bend because they'll bite you in the hiney. And going too long between extended oil changes is going to bite you in the hiney. Maybe not while you're under warranty, but after 36,000 miles, the customer's on their own. They have.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we showed. Is if they went with the higher numbers, instead of lasting, and we might make up a number, 300,000 or 400,000 miles on an engine,
right?
It might last 100 to 150,000, and the EPA basically took the approach of that's not our problem.
That's true. That is not their problem because it's got out of warranty. They got green credits. Now the dealership says, okay, you've got a car that's wore out, bad engine in it after 100,000 miles, which only takes some people to put 100,000 miles on 5 to 8 years, and they put 100,000 miles on, and some people it takes a lot longer. But if you can get a car that could go 3, 4, 500,000 miles and keep that car for 10 to 15 to 20 years without having major problems, that's money in the bank without having to go out and spend a lot of money to buy new cars. But I guess we're just a throwaway society, Mark. Maybe that's all it is. We just want to get it out of warranty and throw it away and make more money. But I got a feeling that's going to change in the future. I don't think people.
Well,
are gonna
I think it will, and it'll come down to someone, and this is probably what it'll be. Someone will say, "Gee, you're taking advantage of the minorities because they can't afford to put an engine in," and it'll take something like that to get this turned around. Because again, when the government got involved and didn't want to listen to logic or actual data, they made their decision based on what they were going to do, not what was best for the vehicle or the typical person.
So political correctness strikes us again in the auto maintenance world.
That's it.
Bad coming. Hey, Mark, I've really enjoyed this conversation. This show has gone really, really fast. We only got about a minute left on here. Give me for a minute what's happening on the Volkswagen thing. Any more on
Well,
Volkswagen?
just as I mentioned, we continue, unfortunately, to find out how many other companies.
Oh, we dropped off. Oh, we're going to lose him again. Well, we'll get him next week. He'll explain more about what's going on. But they have found out there's a lot more. Once they moved the rock and looked underneath it, they found a whole bunch of other companies out there doing the same dadgum thing. Hey, this is James Morris along with Anna Marie Morris. We've enjoyed being on the television with you this morning. We hope to see you again tomorrow morning. So if you have a car question and you didn't call today because the lines were tied up because we're talking to Mark, we had so much going on, give us a call tomorrow morning between 6 and 6:30 on Fox 28 at 763-0555, area code 850 at James Auto Center, I should say, because that's where we're at. James Auto Center, 1301 East 11th Street in Panama City, Florida. Thank you so much for listening, Panama City. Thank you so much for watching. And if you got car questions, like I said, give us a call Monday through Friday from 6 to 6:30 or from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock as my shop is open, but I don't talk on the phone because someone else does that. But if you want free information from the Master Auto Technician himself, give us a call 850-763-0555. Monday through Friday on Fox 28. Bye-bye now.
James Auto Center, we fix it right.